The Panos Skordi encounter.
Hi, this is Panos here with Michael Yates to tackle challenges in passing the Investment and Financial Markets exam known as IFM. Michael is an expert in this subject and his details will be included in the description. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
So let's kick off by asking, what is subject IFM?
So as you said, IFM is investments and financial markets. It is a very finance-heavy exam, and you can take the material and break it down roughly 50-50. Approximately 50% of the exam is questions about derivatives and derivative products, and to a smaller extent, their application to insurance. And then roughly 50% of the exam covers corporate finance and investments.
Okay. So is IFM considered a hard exam?
That's tough to say. I think, relatively speaking, if you compare it to FM and P, I think the consensus would be that it is a little bit harder for a couple of reasons. The first reason being that there's a little bit more material on this exam than on those two. And the second being that there's a little more theoretical material on exam IFM, meaning qualitative understanding as well as quantitative. So the learn formula, plug into formula, generate answer algorithm that you can use on some of the other preliminary exams isn't quite as always applicable here.
So is it a computer-based exam or traditional paper and pencil exam?
They've moved to computer-based exam now. There are options to take it paper and pencil, but the overwhelming majority of students are going to take it on the computer.
And where do students take the exam now?
They take it at a Prometric exam center.
And how many times is the exam offered?
It's offered 3 times a year. They have a sitting that is in March, a sitting in July, and a sitting in November of every year.
How long does the exam last?
It's a 3-hour exam with 30 multiple choice questions.
Does it vary from the 30 questions or is it always 30 questions?
It's always 30 questions. The only variable, so to speak, is that because the exam's given over a multi-day window, not every student, a student who sits on Tuesday won't necessarily get the same questions as a student who sat on Wednesday, but there are a lot of computer programs running to ensure that the difficulty stays consistent from exam to exam.
How is the exam scored?
So each question is scored right or wrong. So it's just a rough score out of the number of questions you got correctly. They all have 5 answer choices, A through E. And generally speaking, the CBT exam has set a pass mark of 72%, meaning that in the absence of any pilot questions, which is a separate topic we can discuss if you'd like, assuming all 30 questions actually count towards your score, you would need to get approximately 22 of them correct to pass the exam.
Okay. So how quickly is it before you find out if you've actually passed the exam?
So starting this year, students should get near instant feedback. So they receive an email the day of the exam with, they call it an unofficial score, but anecdotally, we haven't heard many instances of students whose unofficial pass-fail result is different from their official pass-fail result. So you can expect to get that feedback on your exam day.
And when they get the results, what's the percentage of students that actually pass the exam?
So the average pass rate for exam IFM, which is actually quite young, there's only been 8 sittings of this exam so far, is 52%. But they also report what's called an effective pass rate. And what the effective pass rate is they try to weed out the students who were completely unprepared. So if a student answers no questions correct, they don't want that to sort of dilute the pass statistics. And the effective pass rate is 55% for this exam, which is right in line with exam FM and just slightly higher than exam P.
I think I may know the answer to this from an earlier answer you gave, but if a student fails the exam, must they wait a certain amount of time to take it again?
They can take it again as of the next sitting. So 4 months would be the minimum amount of time that could pass before you retake the exam.
And are there any limits on the number of times you can take an exam, or you can just keep on taking it until you get to pass it?
There are no limits at this time, no.
And when students are taking the exams, how early in their exam road should they consider taking IFM?
I think students should probably take exam IFM as their third exam. So after they've done P and FM, and probably before any of the other exams. It's a great third exam to take because whether you go the CAS route or the SOA route, it counts.
So, okay, so it doesn't make a difference whether you could take it with the Society of Actuaries or the Casualty Actuarial Society. That's good to know. And I believe that if you pass IFM, you can actually get a waiver from one of the Institute of Actuary exams. I believe it's CM2, which is Financial Engineering and Loss Reserving. So if students are interested in that, people interested in that, they can look that up, but there are waiver agreements. Where can students get the study material from?
Well, for preliminary study material, I would recommend going to the SOA website. So if you go to the SOA website, so the easiest way to find it is simply to go into a browser search and type in SOA exam IFM. That should take you straight to that exam page. There you'll find things like the syllabus, which gives you the topics that will be on your exam, the relevant chapters from the source textbooks, some limited number of study questions and practice questions with solutions, and the 2 study documents that they'll need as well. So there are 2 study notes for this exam, in addition to the 2 source textbooks that students will need, and they can find all of that there. Now, I think most students will find, particularly with one of these 2 textbooks, and I don't want to sort of anger someone in my field, so I won't say which one, but it might not be as readable as the typical student would like. So I think most students are also going to want some sort of supplementary study guide material like the ones that we offer, for example, through the Infinite Actuary, to sort of take what is hard to digest and hard to read content for many students and break it down into a format that'll be more useful as you study for the exam.
Right, okay. So are students allowed calculators during this exam?
Absolutely, and they are essential. There's a list of, if you go to that website that I referenced earlier, you'll find a list of approved calculators. I would recommend that students right from the start get acquainted with the TI-30XS calculator. This is what I use for teaching in my seminar. You can use that throughout the preliminary exams, and it's a great calculator. It can do a lot of great time-saving things. And then for exam IFM, they also might want to have the Texas Instrument BA2 Plus. This calculator here is a dinosaur, so it probably doesn't look like this anymore. But this is really useful for time value problems. And chances are, if students have taken FM, by the time they get to IFM, they'll be familiar with that calculator.
Are students allowed anything else on the exams, such as Excel cheat sheets or formula sheets?
No. So they're not allowed to bring in anything additional. There's no Excel allowed on the exam. There's no exterior formula sheets. However, there is a 2-page formula document that will be provided on the exam. You can click right on it on your CBT screen, and that will bring up formulas for the Greeks of call and put options, which may not mean anything now, but once students study, they'll know what I'm talking about. And also it gives the cumulative and density functions for both normal and log normal variables. And in addition to that, they have access to a calculator that gives you cumulative distribution function probabilities for standard normal variables.
So if a student's thinking about taking this exam, what is the registration process?
It's, to boil it down simply, I'd say it's a 2-stage registration process. First, you have to go to the SOA website and register and pay. Then they'll send you what's called a student number. and you use that student number to register at one of these Prometric exam testing centers to actually take your exam. And for students who are thinking about doing this, a piece of advice I would give you is the moment you get your student number, go ahead and sign up for your testing center, because those things do have limited seats and they fill up. And you always would like to get, obviously, the testing center that's nearest to your current location.
What's the current cost of taking this exam?
The exam is $350 with, I believe, a $50 discount for students. And then that is simply for registering for the exam. And then, of course, there will be additional costs for those students who either want to acquire a textbook or acquire a study manual to prepare.
Okay. So this is going to be the end of part 1 on tackling challenges surrounding the IFM exam. Part 2 will follow shortly. Thanks, Michael. Michael's contact details will be included in the description. This is your host, Panos Skordi, on the Panos Skordi Encounter. Take care wherever you are.
Thank you.